Hey guys, this is Matt, and I'm back with part 4 of our tower defense tutorial series, where we're going to learn how to spawn waves of enemies. So let's take a look at the state of the game. So right away you'll see it's very different. We got these towers shooting enemies. Enemies are actually animated. And I'll try to post some videos about how that was happening. I didn't actually do the turret part of things. I'm in charge of the map and the enemies. So whenever I get something from our developer that did that, I'll put a link up here or something, and we'll go from there. So notice how these enemies just started spawning right after this wave, you know, about 25 seconds after. And they're also spawning in regular intervals of 1 second between each enemy. Then we have this little button over here we can press that goes ahead and sends the wave automatically. These are splitter enemies, so as soon as one of them dies, it'll be really cool. We even have these different turret types that we implemented. So yeah, one of them died, spawns little baby versions of itself. That's really neat. And then after you spawn 10, or after the 10th wave, yeah, there is a boss enemy. So these are the things that we're going to be learning. So let's take a look. First, let's take a look at the public variables. Yeah, the public variables that we made. This is the map script. We'll go into it in a little bit, but we have an enemy prefabs array and we have a boss prefabs array. These are the enemy prefabs that are going to be created. So we have the fast ones, we have the slow ones, which are the goblins, and then the spawner ones. And they're all right there. Fast, slow, spawner, and then the boss enemy right there. So those are the prefabs. Now let's actually go into the script. So we have our wave attributes here. We have a list of waves, and a wave is what holds all the information. We have a wave over here. It tells you if it's going to have an enemy type, and this is an enum. So we have an enemy type or a boss type. Only one of these is going to have a real value, so that'll tell me if it's what kind of wave it is. We have an enemy spawn event, which is the next time that an enemy in this wave is supposed to be spawned. And then we have a spawn delay, which is just how fast to spawn your enemies. And the number of enemies, obviously, how many are in the wave. So inside of the map here, we come back, we have two lists of waves. We have upcoming waves, so these are all the waves that are going to be in the future, and then the current waves that are going, since you actually have the ability to set off multiple waves at one time. And we have a wave spawn delay, so these are the 25 seconds that I was talking about between each wave. And then we have the time that the wave was spawned, so I just add those 25 seconds on there, and that's the next time you're supposed to spawn a wave. Number of waves is going to be at 80, and then we have this player trigger bool that you saw me pressing in the game. So this goes ahead and just spawns enemies right away. And okay, so right at the beginning of the script inside of the map, we do a make waves. So we make all of the waves up front. So we aren't making these waves in real time, basically. You know, as the waves come up, it's already decided from the beginning of the game. So at the beginning here, we have two attributes, an int random and an int wave. But the first wave we're going to add to our upcoming waves list is just going to be static. It's always going to be these enemy.strongs. And actually, let's take a look at those enums. So we have the enemy type and the boss type. These are just indexes into those two public arrays that I showed you from the editor right there. So fast is 1, strong, or fast 0, strong 1, spawner 2. And then we have a start, which is just -1, and a max. So those are in there just so makes it a little bit easier later on, as you'll see. And we have the boss type, which are the indexes into the boss list. So whenever you add an enemy prefab to your list, you just add the corresponding enum to the correct index, and then you have your indexes into that list. So the first wave, like I said, is static. It's always going to be these strong enemies, they're always going to be spawned at a 1 second interval, and then there's always going to be 10 of them. And I actually forgot to show it, but there are two constructors. One of them takes an enemy and one of them takes a boss. So in each of those constructors, they set, if it's a boss type, it's going to set the enemy type to max. If it's an enemy, it's going to set the boss type to max. That way I know what kind of wave I'm actually dealing with. So you can actually just make all of your waves static, so that you know, if you want complete control over what enemies are being created, you can go ahead and do that. But I want it to be a little bit random, except for this first wave, because I don't want to be too difficult and, you know, spawn a crazy enemy the first time. So next we are going to go into a for loop from 1, because we already have our first wave in there. So we're going to start at 1, and we're going to go to the number of waves, which is 80 right now. And this is what creates our bosses. So if it's a modulus of 10, or if it's every 10 waves, then we are going to get our random number, which is just an index into our boss array, or no, which is basically an index, but we're getting a random enum of boss type. And it goes from start plus 1, since start was -1, now it's going to be 0, and we're going to go to max. So basically we're only choosing boss, because since there's only one enemy in there right now. So this is going to be 0 for the first boss, then it's just going to be that enum at a 1 second interval. We're creating one enemy, and that's it. That's our wave. Then we're going to do a upcoming waves.add that wave that we made, and then go back and do it again. So if it's not a mod 10, then we're going to get a random from the enemy .start plus 1 to the enemy max. And this one is much more interesting, because you have an equal chance of getting a fast, a strong, or a spawner enemy. So you get that, and then you just put it in there, put it at 1 second intervals, make them 10, bam, put them in that list. Alright, so that's how you make the waves, but how do you actually spawn them? Well, so we go and look at our update. Sorry, there's a phone, I'll go get that. And I'm back. So we were going to take a look at how waves get from the upcoming waves into the current waves list, and then also how we create the enemies that are inside of current wave. That is all done inside of update. I just call this create methods, or create enemies, sorry. So first thing we need to do is find out if it's time to spawn the next wave, if the upcoming wave needs to be moved over to the current wave list. So we get the current time. If the current time is greater than the next wave spawn event, or if the player manually triggers the wave, then we're going to just set that trigger to false in case it was pressed, and then we're going to set the next spawn event equal to the current time plus the wave spawn delay. So that's the 25 seconds that we were seeing. Then we're going to go ahead and spawn a wave. So we make sure that there are waves left to spawn by checking if the count is greater than 0. And so if it is, then we're going to get the first wave out of that list. We're going to go ahead and remove it from that list, and we're going to put it inside of the current waves. Back inside of create enemies, we then go into, for each wave in the current waves, we are going to see if it's time to spawn an enemy. So if the current time is greater than the next enemy spawn event, and the wave.number of enemies is greater than 0, we're going to actually spawn that enemy from the wave. So we have to figure out if it's a boss or if it's an enemy type wave, and we do that by checking if the enemy type is equal to the max. Then we know that we need to be indexing into the boss prefabs list using the .boss type. Else, then we need to index into the enemy prefabs using enemy type. So now we have our game object enemy from our prefabs list. Now we just need to instantiate it, giving it the enemy spawn transform dot position, and just a quaternion dot Euler. Now we just need to set the next enemy spawn event equal to the current time plus the spawn delay, and then subtract the number of enemies inside of that wave, so that it actually stops spawning whenever it gets to 0. Now this is actually pretty cool. So after we spawn all of the enemies, we do a current waves dot remove all. Now we I just made a random thing A, and A is going to be equal to the number of enemies less than or equal to 0. So it is going to check through all of the waves inside of current waves, and for every wave where number of enemies is less than or equal to 0, it's just going to remove it. So this is an easy way to remove elements from a list. That's actually pretty neat. I just found it. So that is about it. This was a longer video than I thought it was going to be, so sorry about that. I'll try to work on shortening them. But if you made it through, thanks for watching. See ya.